Mothers and daughters cheating on their husbands. That's something you don't often see in a man you pick up in a bar. We watched the men get dressed and leave the motel room, and when they left, she looked at me and said, "Well, you sure got the best of that deal." Hey, I gave you the right of first refusal. There's nothing I can do if you pick the wrong one. I don't know how I let you talk me into this. No, you don't. You're as much of a cheater as I am, only you kept it to yourself all these years. I swear it wasn't any better than I was getting from your father. Don't worry, Mom. Next time will be much better. How can you promise that? Next time, Mom, I'll make arrangements ahead of time with guys I know can do it right. In the meantime, we need to get dressed and hurry home to our husbands. How did I end up in a motel room with my mom and the two guys we picked up at the bar? It all started when my mom and I got drunk together one night. My dad was on a business trip and my husband had taken a week's vacation to go fishing in Canada. It was one of those can't-miss activities. I think the only way to get there was by float plane or dog sled or something. Anyway, my mom and I ate dinner together, drank wine at dinner, then more wine after dinner, and more wine as we started crying on each other's shoulders about the sorry state of our marriages. How we got to this point, I don't know exactly. I don't remember much about what happened after we embarked on our third bottle of wine, but Mom started talking about how Dad hadn't made love to her in over 4 months. He's always going out of town on these damn business trips, and when he comes home he says he's too tired. He asks me to give him a day or two to recover, so I do, and then he goes off on business trips again. I spend a fortune on batteries for my toy. I don't know where it came from. Guilt, frustration with my husband, or maybe some underlying hostility toward my father. But when my mom made the remark about batteries, I said, "You don't need batteries, you need a man. You need to throw away your toys and get yourself a man." Mom looked at me like I had just slapped her in the face and then said, "I could never do anything like that. How could you even say something like that to me?" I said it because I see you where you were myself 2 years ago, and I know how much it sucks, and I know how miserable I was until I did something about it. I thought you and John had a great marriage. I did, right up until the moment he decided that his career was more important to him than having a good relationship with me. I don't understand. It all started when he was promoted to district manager. Suddenly, he saw himself as a rising star in the company. He saw himself rising to district manager, then to division manager, and finally to vice president. He started putting all his energy into his work. He started spending more time with customers than he did with me. Fishing, hunting, and golf trips took up all of his time. A trip with 10 clients to Daytona for Speed Week was more important than a vacation with me. It was like I didn't exist to him anymore. I never knew that. Like Dad, when he was home, he was always too tired to do anything. He was too tired to even cut the grass, so he hired a lawn care service. He hired a company to come and wash the windows in the house, inside and out. If something needed to be done, he hired someone to come and do it. He hadn't made love to me in over 3 months, and one day I asked him if he was going to hire someone to take care of that too. He laughed and treated it as a joke. He told me to take the yellow pages and find such a service, and he would call them, but didn't take the hint and took me to bed. So yeah, I know what you're going through. So what did you do? I went on a date and slept with him. Not true. Oh, yes. That week when John took those 7 clients to the Super Bowl in Detroit, I went outside, let myself be picked up and taken to a motel room. I stayed there for 2 days before going home, and I've been doing that ever since. You cheated on John? That's one way of putting it. I prefer to say I take care of my needs according to my husband's wishes. He told me to find a service, and I did, and you should do it. Tomorrow night I'm going out. Would you like to join me? Of course not. I may not be getting anything from your father right now, but I'm not desperate enough to do what you suggest. Well, Mom, if you ever get to that desperate point, call me. It was almost a month before she called, and the result was a night in a motel room. I felt bad about the way the evening had turned out for my mom and decided to plan an evening that would make things right. 3 days later, I picked up my mom to take her to an Avon party. In making the date, I didn't tell the guys she was my mother. As far as they knew, she was just an older, married friend. We met Stan and Will at the Starlight Lounge, and after drinks and dancing, the guys drove us to the Super 8 motel, where my mom nearly got her brains blown out. It started with Will and I in one bed, and Stan and my mom in another, and ended with all 4 of us in one bed. Between the beginning and the end, Mom was turned in all directions, just not to freedom. It went so far I didn't even expect it. Have you ever seen your own mom being doubled over? I had, and it surprised the hell out of me that she not only liked it, but wanted to do it again. So, I asked my mom as we drove home, did you enjoy the night with your daughter? I've never felt so depraved in my life. I don't know how I'll be able to look your father in the eye after tonight. Don't you dare feel guilty about me. Guilt? I'm not feeling guilty, I'm angry. Your father has the same technique as those 2 tonight, and in fact, he has more dignity than either of them. But he has never, in 27 years of marriage, made me feel the way I feel now. I didn't want to leave that motel room. I wanted to go on and on and on. They asked me when we could do it again. And what did you tell them? That I would talk to you and get back to them. Okay, when's the next Avon or Tupperware party we're having? My mother must have had hidden cheater genes. Perhaps it was from her that I got them. And over the next month, we attended over a dozen Avon, Tupperware, and Cookie Lee jewelry parties together. One evening, my dad pulled me aside and thanked me for spending so much time with my mom. I feel bad leaving her alone, but I have to do it if I want to be vice president. When I become one, I'll be able to spend more time at home. I loved my dad and wouldn't wish him harm for anything in the world. But I also understood how the lack of sex could turn out, so I leaned toward my mom's opinion. Besides, as long as we were discreet, he would never find out. For my part, I had to honestly admit that I didn't know if I cared if my husband found out what I was doing or not. I hadn't been on his radar for some time now. We had grown distant from each other over the past couple years, and I wasn't sure if we were still apart because neither of us had the energy to stop. I still cared for him, and he still continued to do the same on birthdays, anniversaries, and the like, but the spark disappeared when he immersed himself in his career. And there was something else. The guys I was involved with were my age and John's age, and they were all like sex-crazed rabbits. And I just couldn't believe that John didn't have the same sex drive as other people our age, and if he did, he sure as hell wasn't driving a car with me. Either way, John was glad I was spending so much time with my mom. Obviously, I couldn't run after him if I was with my mom, could I? The most amazing thing about my mom was how wild she could be when she started playing. She would do things I didn't do and didn't want to do, and I considered myself a first-class cheater. One night, Mom invited 5 men to join us at the motel, and I watched her handle them. It was a bad night for me because they all wanted me to have sex with them too, but I didn't want to do it. I kept pushing them away, but they wouldn't stop trying until Mom told them to leave me alone, or we would both get dressed and leave. On the way home, my mom asked me why I didn't want to take advantage of all the men that were available that night, and I couldn't answer her because I didn't know. I didn't feel guilty cheating on John. I was just getting what I needed, what he wouldn't give me, but somehow I felt obligated to limit myself to one man. Sometimes I had threesomes, but I tried not to take things to extremes. My mother was forcing me to change, and I wasn't sure I liked the way things were going. Luckily, my mother decided she was getting a little carried away, and one night, as the 2 of us were enjoying a rousing evening of swapping 2 guys around, she said, "You know, Marion, I'm getting too old for this. I need a good, steady lover. Just one good man. I've loved every second of what we've done since you brought me out of my shell, but I'm afraid that's just not me. One good, steady man is what I need." I'd like it to be your father, but that's not likely to happen until he gets the vice presidency, and that may not happen. So where's an old broad like me to find a good steady lover? Are you serious? Is that what you really want? Mom was quiet for a few seconds and then replied, Yes, Marion, I'm serious. Then I have the right man for you. You have? Who? John's father. Your father-in-law? You bet. And how are you going to do that? Easy. He's already told me he'd like to jump on your bones. He told you that? When? When I finished my affair with him. You and John's father? Yes. And when I told him it was over between us, he said the least I could do for him to ease the pain of losing me was to set him up with you. He said that? Oh my God. Why did you break up with him? It was too intense and too close to home. All I wanted to do was have sex, but we started getting too emotionally involved. I wanted sex at the time, but I wasn't interested in jeopardizing my marriage. At the time? Does that mean you don't care now? I don't know what that means, Mom. Would you like me to arrange for the two of you to meet? How would you do that? I'm done with the affair, but we still see each other occasionally. I'll arrange a meeting with him. You'll be there. I'll remind him that he asked me to set him up with you, and then I'll leave you two to sort things out. But you'll have to share him with me from time to time. I think I've shown over the last month that I can share. How about Thursday? And wear heels. He really likes heels, hose, and garters. I called Ralph and asked him to meet me at the bar at the Hilton. He noticed me when he walked in the door, but because of the high backs of the booths, he didn't see my mom. As he motioned to where we were sitting, I remembered how our first time happened. It was at Cousin John's wedding. John was away on another of his must-take-care-of-the-client trips. 5 clients sport fishing in the Bay Area, if I remember correctly. And I had to go to the wedding alone to represent our side of the family. I was not in the best of spirits, and Ralph noticed this about a half hour after arriving at the reception. He elected himself a committee of 1 to cheer me up. He danced with me, made sure my drink was full, and tried very hard to lift my spirits. By the end of the reception, I had so much to drink that he wouldn't let me go home and said he would drive me home and that we would come back for my car the next day. On the way home, he told me that John was working hard to secure our future and make our lives better, that traveling would lead to promotions, more money, and eventually a position where he would stay home and send others on trips. He kept trying to convince me that everything would work out in the end, and that I just needed to be patient. I started crying. He pulled to the curb and tried to comfort me, and it all came pouring out. About how even when John was home, he was always too tired to make love, and how they hadn't made love in over 4 months, and how there hadn't even been kissing and hugging. Ralph made all the necessary noises. There, Marion, don't cry. Things will get better. I know John loves you. Just be patient and things will get better. He really made me stop crying. At the house, he walked me to the door and then told me he would be back in the morning to pick me up and go get my car. I invited him in for coffee, but he declined, saying he had to go, and I leaned forward to kiss his cheek. Unintentionally, but my lips touched his mouth, and it was like a spark passed between us, and suddenly my body pressed against his. Our tongues entwined, and his arms wrapped around me. He was having sex with me right there in the hallway. After that, we fell asleep together, and that was the end of it. For the next 6 months, we met every time John left on one of his excursions, and a few times when he stayed home. Once I had sex with Ralph in the basement, while John watched a soccer game right above our heads. I know I'm 20 years older than you, Marion, and I know this will cause a scandal in the family, but you and I should be together. And that was the end of it. I wasn't all that happy with John's situation, but I wasn't ready to leave John, and I certainly wasn't ready to marry his father. Ralph was my first infidelity, and it showed that I had no qualms getting the sex that John wasn't giving me from someone else. 6 months with Ralph also showed me that long-term relationships tend to drag on too long, so I decided that my next lover wasn't going to be anything more than a one-night stand. Since then, I've lost count of how many cheats I've made through John's work. Ralph walked over to the table and I could see his face when he saw my mom sitting there. I giggled and said, "What's the matter, Pops? Did you come in expecting to maybe get sex tonight?" He shifted his gaze from me to my mom and said, "Good evening, Mona. Marion didn't tell me you'd be here, but it's good to see you." He lowered himself into the booth next to Mom so that he was facing me, and I could see the unspoken question on his face. "You once asked me to set you up with my mom. Consider it done with her. Now I'm going to leave you two alone to work out the details. I'll call you in the morning, Mom. Enjoy the two of you." I got up, left them there, and went to find myself a man for the night. The end! Subscribe to my channel! Thank you!